So I think we can all agree that when it comes to Nintendo's global president, Mr. Shuntaro Furukawa, he's a very behind the scenes type of person and pretty much never shows up in like a Nintendo Direct or interacts with fans or customers or anything directly, so you never really get to see this man in terms of video or anything. And even every time I talk about him in my videos, I have to use like this really low quality 480p crusty footage of him in one investors meeting that somehow ended up on the Japanese news, so we actually get to see footage of this man talking. But besides that, there's like no high quality videos of this man speaking or anything, and if you do know any, please link them to me because I would love to stop being able to use this every time I talk about him. But yeah, pretty much he never shows up in terms of anything and pretty much just handles all of the Nintendo like business stuff behind the scenes. So it was definitely surprising to me when I found out that there was actually an interview that he got to have with a Japanese news outlet and talked about the Nintendo Switch 2 and some of Nintendo's plans moving forward, and one of the topics was actually pretty interesting and is getting a lot of discussion, so I figured I'd also talk about it because it is kind of making sense with what I've talked about before in the past. So here's an article from Go Nintendo that has some of the key points that were brought up inside of the interview that this Japanese news outlet got to have with Nintendo's president Shuntaro Furukawa. And really the thing here is that if we look at all of these bullet points, the big topic that is getting a lot of discussion right now is right here where it says concerning on the potential of a price increase on products, and it was in regards a lot especially to the Nintendo Switch 2. Furukawa said, "I cannot comment on hypotheticals." Now most people will look at this and be like, well, that's a pretty standard Nintendo PR type of response. He can't comment on the hypothetical possibility of a price increase, he doesn't know what's going to happen and all of that, and I can't blame you if you also think that. But the thing that I find really interesting is that Furukawa will always be really straightforward with anybody if he knows for a fact that something isn't going to happen. Like when we were still talking about the possibility of the Nintendo Switch 2 and when it was going to come out, like a lot of times in the investors meetings, so many times they would ask like, is the new Nintendo system finally going to come out this year? Are we getting a Switch revision or a Switch Pro or something? And if he knew for a fact that it wasn't going to happen, he would just flat out deconfirm everything. Like there was one year where he was literally just like, there will be no new Nintendo hardware this year, and that year we actually did not get any brand new Nintendo hardware, so he knew for a fact that they weren't going to do anything, so he just flat out debunked everything and told us right there. And so I would imagine that internally, if Nintendo was satisfied with the current price of the Switch 2 and the profit that they're making from it, the money that's coming in, and they're pretty happy inside of all of their finance meetings, and there really isn't any discussion happening about potentially increasing the price of the Switch 2 later down the line or because of changing market conditions, I feel like Furukawa's answer might have been a little bit more positive, where he would have been like, you know, at this time we're not really thinking about having a price increase or really changing anything, we're pretty content with the price of the Switch 2, or we believe it's fairly priced right now, or something like that. But the fact that he said, I can't speak on hypotheticals, it's actually a pretty smart answer because it does leave the door open so that if they do have a price increase later down the line, then they can't really say something where they were like, well, we never said like at this time we weren't thinking about that happening or anything like that, because if he did say that and then they did increase the price, they would have been kind of painted into a corner, or like people would have not been as happy because they would have been like, well, you told us you weren't thinking about raising the price, but now you are doing it. So the fact that he didn't give an answer is kind of speaking more than if he just said that they weren't going to do one, if that kind of makes sense. And I'm sure you guys have heard about it by now, but because of the changing market conditions and everything that's happening in the economy, and then on top of that having this giant boom of AI where they're shoving AI into literally every website and software that people use, they need to also have these giant AI data centers all around the world to be able to handle all of the AI tasks and algorithms that are being sent to it. And so they need to have these giant servers to be able to handle that, and that is costing the components of computers to become super expensive when it comes to the RAM and the storage and all of that, and that's affecting all of these consumers who are using that for their own computers, but also companies who have to use those components inside of their own products, and that is costing all of the prices for like these consoles and everything to also go up. I mean, prices of PlayStation 5s have already gone up, Xboxes have become more expensive, and even Nintendo did a price increase to the entire Switch 1 generation last year, where the entire Switch 1 family became more expensive from the Switch Lite to the original Switch and the Nintendo Switch OLED. So the fact that they were even willing to do a price increase to the Switch 1 8 years after it came out, I definitely feel like there's no saying that they can't do a price increase at some point to the Switch 2. And we've already had rumors floating around that apparently it's 41% more expensive now for Nintendo to produce a Switch 2 system because of the increased prices in RAM and storage and all of that. And so if that is the case, then Nintendo is definitely going to need to adapt their price. So it looks bad for the consumer, but it's something that Nintendo might just need to do in order to keep the profit still afloat to what they were getting before. And it sucks because it's out of their control, but they're pretty much going to have to adapt if they want to keep everything afloat. And really the analogy that I like to use to explain this to someone who doesn't fully get it is, let's pretend that you own a sandwich shop and it costs you $2 to make a sandwich, but then you sell those sandwiches for $6. Well, by doing this, you're making $4 of profit because you're making $4 extra off of every sandwich that you sell. But now let's say that because of factors that are outside of your control, they come up to you and they're like, well, sorry, buddy, but now bread and cheese is way more expensive. So because you can't control the price of bread and cheese, now let's say that it costs you $8 to make a sandwich now. Well, do you see how if you still sell those sandwiches for $6, instead of making $4 like you were before, you're actually losing $2 instead. So that's actually worse because now instead of making money, you're basically losing money off of every sandwich that you sell. So instead, if it costs you $8 to make a sandwich, you have to sell the sandwich for $12 to still be able to make the $4 of profit that you were making before. But now to a consumer from the outside, if they're looking in, they're like, wait a minute, the sandwich used to cost $6 and now it's $12. Oh my god, this sandwich shop is so greedy now, they doubled the price of their sandwich to make more money. But in reality, you're basically just making the profit that you were making before, but because the market conditions and the price of stuff has gotten so expensive, you need to do that to be able to keep your business alive. Now obviously it's much more complicated than that internally, but it gives you an idea for exactly what it's like for Nintendo because they can't control the price of RAM and the storage, but it is components that are important to them in making Nintendo Switch 2 systems, so they're pretty much going to have to adapt if it becomes really bad for them, and that is going to result in increasing the price. And it just sucks that because of the way that everything is right now, we have to suffer with these increased prices, and companies have to raise the prices of all of their things so that they're still making the money that they need to earn too. So it's just bad all around. I know like Valve is supposed to be launching like their own console recently with like that Steam machine system that was announced a few months ago, but even that now they're kind of like thinking about the price, and the price is kind of fluctuating internally apparently because they have to like worry about the market conditions and the price of RAM that's increasing and everything too. So they have to like price the system much higher than they probably would have wanted to, so it just sucks for them. There's even rumors going around that the next generation of video games might be delayed with like the PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox because the prices in RAM and storage are so expensive that they don't want to launch their console at like $800 because that looks really bad. So it's just bad all around, and we really kind of just need this AI boom to pop and really kind of this whole AI bubble to kind of blow over so that way we can start seeing things return to the way that they should be. But yeah, that's why I've pretty much told everyone that if you're looking to buy a Nintendo Switch 2, or you know that you're probably going to get one eventually at some point, I would definitely try to get the system sooner rather than later because you never know, and with all the prices of RAM and everything increasing, it wouldn't surprise me if like right before the holiday season or in a couple months even, maybe Nintendo could make that announcement that they do have to increase the price of the Switch 2 system, and then if it becomes like $550 or even like $580 or something, then it's just going to suck because having to buy the system at that price and then $70 games, $90 Pro controllers, it's just going to get very, very expensive. So hopefully you are able to get your Switch 2 if you're still looking to get one. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well. I'm definitely gonna have some more videos talking about Nintendo, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Comment down below and let me know what you think about this. Do you think that Nintendo is going to raise the price of the Switch 2 later down the line? Do you already have your Switch 2? When are you thinking about getting it? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. But if you don't have anything to say about it, just comment your favorite emoji down below for some engagement. I would really appreciate it. Go follow me on Twitter at @ActualAero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.